Let's go straight to Gulliver Cragg, our Ukraine correspondent, joining us live from Kyiv. Gulliver, a very good evening to you. This meeting then, what is the sense from your end of what is happening?
Well, I know what I would have asked Keith Kellogg if they had had this press conference. I was there. We were expecting the press conference to happen. It was really cancelled at the last minute. I was going to ask him who's to blame for this war. And I think that would have been very awkward, whether I would have been the one who got to ask the question or somebody else. Somebody would have asked him that question. And given that the United States has just refused to sign a G7 declaration condemning Russia's culpability for invading Ukraine, previously under Biden they always did sign these declarations, it shows that the United States is no longer willing to say that Russia is to blame for invading Ukraine. But I don't think Keith Kellogg could have said that in Kyiv. It would have been scandalous if he had refused to call Russia the aggressor when standing right next to Volodymyr Zelensky. Certainly Zelensky would have had to react. Maybe, this is just me speculating, they wanted to avoid questions like that or other questions. Certainly it's a very, very delicate moment, and Keith Kellogg is perhaps trying to convince the Ukrainians, who have been very shocked by Donald Trump's recent rhetoric, that they still can get something out of talks with the Americans, that they don't have to think that the Americans are completely abandoning them. He will be reporting back to Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, if not to Trump directly. And he says that his mission here is to listen, try to understand, and relay the Ukrainians' positions back to the Trump administration. At the moment, the Ukrainians' positions, if they have understood them, the Americans are very much at odds with what the Americans' positions are. The Americans are basically saying, give us all your resources before we even tell you what we might give you in return in terms of security guarantees. Yes, and most Ukrainians don't at the moment see the Americans as being likely to push Putin into any kind of deal that's acceptable to them.
Kellogg, in a sense, Gulliver, caught in the middle. I understand his daughter works for an NGO in Ukraine, so perhaps he's getting a different narrative coming from her perspective on these things. They talk, clearly, but nonetheless, he works for Trump, and that, of course, is the big issue, getting Trump to see a different side of the story to the one that he's already convinced by.
Yes, I mean, the Ukrainian side, they said this openly, although, of course, off the record, feel that Kellogg has been sidelined a bit and that he's not playing as important a role as his official job title would suggest. But perhaps it's too early to call that. He will be reporting back to Washington. We don't yet know exactly whether this trip's going to amount to anything. But at the moment, it's not like there's a great deal of hope being placed in Keith Kellogg. He is not leaving until tomorrow evening, though, and it's reported he may be, though it's not confirmed yet, making a trip to the actual front line to talk with soldiers there.
Gulliver Cragg, thank you very much indeed for that update. And that would be a very interesting journey to go on, wouldn't it? Gulliver Cragg, our correspondent there in Kyiv. Thank you very much indeed. Kevin Gorgeous is here to